Trash day is my favorite time of the week. The street turns into this incredible market where you can find fans and old frames with plenty of bags of trash. Sure, most of the stuff is garbage, but every once in a while I stumble upon something that can actually be used, like these 3 pieces of tempered glass. I have no idea what to do with them, but I can't stand good materials like these going to waste. Hey, my name's Chris. I'm a designer and photographer based in Philadelphia. One of my passions is just building weird things for my apartment. I think it's a great way to have character in your space and make it kind of your own, right? I am hugely inspired by found materials because it's one less thing going into a landfill, and oftentimes using a material that you wouldn't otherwise use just because you found it can inspire designs that you wouldn't otherwise design. So it's a great way to get creative. For example, this old gate and a cabinet door that I found in the trash became this awesome light fixture above my kitchen island. So now let's get back to this glass and see what we can do with it. Each pane measures about 30 inches by 14 inches with a thickness of 1/4 inch. The most obvious use for this glass is shelving. That's likely what it was used for before it was thrown in the trash. And it could be mounted to a window frame to make room for some more plants. But I really wanted to try something a bit more unconventional. I always need these small tables for plants, and my current solutions are a bit janky at times. This table is made from a trash can upside down and another thing I found in the trash, so I think we can do better. What if we arrange these glass panels vertically and then just 3D print 6 corner pieces that can hold the glass together? This would make a great table base. And I just need these channels to slide the glass into, and I don't know what the tabletop's going to be yet, but we'll figure that out as we go. With the basic idea in mind, the fun part is just to start sketching and imagining what these corner pieces could look like. With a 3D printer, you can really just design anything, so I like to explore a lot of options. The next step is bringing some of these ideas into a 3D modeling program. I developed a lot of options. It's tough because there's no right or wrong here. It's all just aesthetic preference. But I landed on this option that is just minimal, small corners. I'm not really sure structurally if it can take it, but I decided to print this out just as a starting point. I considered a bunch of options for the tabletop. I was looking at Facebook Marketplace for an old table. I looked at some thrift shops, but I landed on trying out a mirror top. This table will be by the window, so I liked the idea of reflecting daylight back up towards the ceiling. I only had 3 of the 6 corner pieces printed, but once I had the tabletop, I just wanted to put this thing together and get a gauge for what it might look like and if this idea is really going to work at all. The main takeaway from this mock-up is that this table is starting to look kind of like a display case, and I realized that I might want to put something inside of it to make it a bit more interesting. I also just didn't like the circular top, so I decided to just integrate a triangular top into the 3D printed corner pieces, and this creates kind of a sealed enclosure in the center. Now, what do we fill it with? My last project was building this 3D printed architectural model, so that's just kind of the wavelength I'm on, so it seemed obvious to just put a building in there. And the Burj Khalifa in Dubai was my first choice because it has this equilateral triangle plan, which is going to fit perfectly. Now that I'm excited about the direction, again, it's time to start printing V2. Each of these pieces takes about 7 hours to print, so it's just something going on in the background while I'm doing other work. I'm really happy with how the fit turned out between this 3D printed part and the glass. It's very snug, which makes me confident that this whole thing can just be friction fit together. For this project, I'm trying something that I haven't tried before, which is finishing 3D printed pieces with sandable primer. So basically, I'm going to give this a quick sand just so the primer can stick to it, do a coat of primer, sand out, another coat of primer, sand it out. And basically what this does is it helps eliminate the layer lines. With all the curved geometry of these pieces, the layer lines are pretty visible, and I want to get it to just a smooth finish, and then I can just spray paint it white after the primer goes on. So we're going to see how it goes, and it's kind of tedious with so many different parts, but let's get started on it. The base sections were printed in 2 pieces, so the first step was supergluing these together, and then I used some filler to start filling in that gap. I applied 3 coats of primer to each of the parts, and then I started sanding. Sometimes it's challenging to do work like this in a small urban apartment where I don't even have a backyard, but the fire escape makes for a great work area. Things are starting to smooth out nicely here, and I love how smooth the connection point is between these 2 separate parts. And 3 coats of white spray paint later, this is the finished part, more or less. I could have done this process over and over and got a perfect finish, but I was happy with how this turned out. The centerpiece skyscraper was printed in 3 different sections. It's about 22 inches tall, and I glued each section together with super glue. I had these rubber feet left over from a previous project, so I used these just to soften the contact with the floor. Okay, now onto the fun part. All these parts are ready to be assembled, and I've kind of been scratching my head on how to actually do it because there's a couple components that need to get in here, and once all these glass panels are together, I can't really work on the inside. So I think I have a process here, and we're gonna see how it goes. I just cleaned the glass, so I'm going to try my best not to get fingerprints on it, which might be a bit hard, but let's start getting these panes of glass in here. Oh yeah, it's a snug fit. Slide them together. Once I started thinking of this table like a display case, it made a lot of sense to add some LED lighting, so here I'm just using some double-sided tape to attach an LED strip light. I spent some time trying to neatly tape this wire down to the glass, and then I realized I just had to undo it to properly route the wire down under the table. And I'm kind of glad because the tape was kind of tacky and not really necessary. I ended up just trying to get it stretched taut, and I think it looks better than taped anyway. It was a little bit of a challenge getting all of these parts together in the correct order, but finally the table is assembled. The total cost of this table was only around $30. It's about $20 for 3D print filament and another $10 for the can of filler primer. All of the other materials were things that I had around, although if you had to buy everything yourself, it might be more like $60, but still an incredibly affordable project and something really unique that I love having in my space.